Hello. We are going over the 324 biblical prophecies that prove Jesus is the Messiah. You are watching this on the Halachgoy channel of YouTube. I'm a Halachgoy, and you can be one too. 324 biblical prophecies that prove Jesus is the Messiah. Prophecy number 30. Suffering outside of the camp. We find this prophecy in the book of Leviticus, chapter 16, verse 27. The bull and the goat for the sin offerings, whose blood was brought into the most holy place to make atonement, must be taken outside of the camp, their hides, flesh, and offal to be burned up. We find the fulfillment of this prophecy in the book of Matthew, chapter 27, verse 33. They came to a place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. Also in Hebrews chapter 13, verse 11 and 12. The high priest carries the blood of the animals into the most holy place as a sin offering, but the bodies are burned outside of the camp. And so Jesus also suffered outside the city gate to make the people holy through his own blood. What's being described in the book of Leviticus, chapter 16, is the Yom Kippur, the annual Yom Kippur services that purified the nation of Israel for the year. The bull and the goat were sacrificed at the tabernacle. Their throats were cut, the blood was collected in a cup, in a vessel. The blood in the vessel was taken and used to cleanse, as part of the service, to cleanse and allow access into the Holy of Holies, the inner chamber of the tabernacle that the high priest could only enter one time a year, and it had to be done in a very prescribed manner. The bodies of the animals, the bull and the goat, that were used the blood was being used from, the bull and the goat, those bodies were to be taken outside of the camp to a distant area outside of the camp, and their bodies and the hide and the offal, just basically the entire body except for the blood, was to be burned outside of the camp. This is being described in the book of Hebrews as what happened to Jesus. That Jesus, his sacrifice was outside of the camp. He suffered outside the city gate to make the people holy through his blood. In the book of Hebrews it's described that his blood, his suffering and his blood was shed outside of the gate. And this was a fulfillment of the typology as described in the book of Leviticus, referring to the bull and the goat. Remember, the bull and the goat are sacrificed. Their throat is cut in the tabernacle, at the location of the tabernacle. The blood is used at the tabernacle. The body is then, the dead carcass is then taken out of the camp and burned. A fire would be made, and the body would burn outside of the camp. I want to look at this rationally. Is this what happened to Jesus? Did Jesus die and shed his blood inside of the camp? Was his body then taken outside of the camp and burned? I don't see that happening in any of the gospel accounts. Now, this is the book of Hebrews. We're not sure who the author was. The 4 gospel accounts all indicate that Jesus died outside of the camp. And we're given the impression through it's the impression we're given is that he died outside of the camp. He was then laid in a tomb. His body was not burned. It is unclear to me how it can be said that Jesus followed the methodology as prescribed in the 16th chapter of Leviticus. Except that he shed blood. But the blood was shed in a way totally different from how it's described in the book of Leviticus. The next prophecy we'll be looking at comes from the book of Leviticus, chapter 17, verse 11. The blood, the life of the flesh. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you next time.